Every week on the Totally Radvertising Podcast, we meet with founders, CEOs, writers, and directors to talk about the creative choices that have made the biggest impact on their brands. And this isn't just any podcast because
it's Totally Radvertising.
I'm Dallin.
And I'm Damian Dayton.
It's totally rad. It's totally radvertising.
And welcome to the Totally Radvertising Podcast. I'm your host, Damian Dayton from Creatably, and joined by our co-host, Dallin, Head of Performance, VP of Performance at Creatably. And today we're excited to have our guest, Todd Smith, an accomplished director who's currently working at Gabb, right?
Yeah.
But still directing. Done features, documentaries, and a lot of high-performance ads.
Yeah.
But you just got in. You weren't here last night. You were in another country. Where did you come from?
I just got back from Cambodia last night. So.
You filmed several things in Cambodia, haven't you?
Yeah. I've shot 2 featured documentaries and done a lot of volunteer work there. So, yeah.
Yeah, literally traveled around the world telling stories. I'm a big fan of you and a big fan of your work, but I also just like working with you.
And likewise.
Okay, well, let's move on to the critique part of the spot. We'll play the ad, but usually we cut away to it.
Okay.
And so we'll do our movie magic, podcast magic, cut away to the spot, but I don't know if Dallin's here. So we'll watch it together, and then we'll talk about it, okay?
เขาจะได้อะไร ถ้าเขาทำแบบนี้ทุกวัน เขาจะไม่ได้อะไรเลย ไม่ได้รวยขึ้น ไม่ได้ออกทีวี ไม่มีใครรู้จัก ไม่ได้มีชื่อเสียงที่มากขึ้น เพราะสิ่งที่เขาได้คือได้แค่ความรู้สึกได้เห็นความสุขได้เข้าใจได้ความรักได้ในสิ่งที่เงินซื้อไม่ได้ได้โลกที่สวยงามกว่าเดิมในชีวิตคุณอะไรคือสิ่งที่คุณต้องการมากที่สุด
ไทยประกันชีวิตเชื่อในความดี
Anyway, so
very cool.
Beautiful ad, right?
Yeah.
So here's my 4 questions, though. I deeply want more commercials like that.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful short film. Makes me want to be a better person, live a better life.
Yeah.
But as a commercial person, I'm going to be the advertiser's advocate here. Here's the 4 questions. Did you like the commercial?
Oh, yeah. Love it.
Beautiful. Did you like the commercial?
Absolutely, yeah.
Totally remember it. It has over 114 million views as an ad, you know,
Yeah.
and that's all organic because I know they're not spending much. It was not a Thai commercial, so not in America, but getting tons of American views on it. What was the product?
Life insurance.
Life insurance. Do you remember the brand?
Tai Life or something.
It was Tai Life.
Tai
Only
Life?
because I
You know the
just
question.
barely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was Tai Life Insurance. And did we learn anything about the product or what it makes it better than other life insurance?
No.
Yeah, which is
You learn very little about the actual.
I'm torn because I go through these questions and I call these my Super Bowl questions because everybody wants to talk about the ads after the commercial. I'm like, oh, that you like that commercial? What was it for? And they're like, I don't know, there were cats, you know, in it.
Yeah.
And this is a beautiful, like, it makes me want to be a better person. It has a great message. And I think they kind of want positive brand by association with this beautiful message.
Yeah.
But I also wonder, they didn't do a series of them, even though it had the 114 million view, because was it effective in doing what they wanted to do? And I think maybe. I think with a life insurance, I would certainly prefer that over Liberty Mutual. You know, that, you know,
Yeah.
any day of the week, they're not just trying to be dumb and
Dreaded
silly.
Liberty Mutual.
If you're just going to do all branding and not performance, give me something worthwhile to hang on to.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, you know, often I'll send the video, we don't watch it together, and just in the course of 4 hours, people will already forget the commercial and that, which I find interesting. But I don't know. Would it make me choose them? I think I might consider it because I'm like, oh, they're good and noble, and I want to be good and noble. I want to be that type of person
Yeah.
that gives my chicken to dogs, even though I know that chicken bones are bad for dogs. But in that commercial, it makes it seem like a
Even
good
though
thing.
that plant is definitely
Overwatered. Yeah.
It's getting way overwatered.
Yeah. Needs to move in and out every day, not
Right,
just,
yeah.
No, but I think it's interesting thinking about where ads are going and where they could go. Where would you like
Yeah.
to see, do you see ads moving in a direction? I mean, we've been doing Long Funny for a while and people say, oh, when are you guys going to stop? Like, you know, people Google reps and Facebook reps will often encourage us to do more short form or more. People say, how long do you think this funny ads are going to work? I don't know. They're still working for us and they work in a different way than like UGC. I would love to see more. I'd love to do like an uplifting ad like that. And I think we can, but I still kind of wonder about their efficacy. You're working around the country as well, though. What are you seeing and where do you think ads are going?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, I mean, it feels like right now the mindset is to just, we were talking about how economic you've got to be with the storytelling because you got to tell the story quickly. You got to cut. Usually that's what you think. Cut. Like we've got short attention spans out there. So we've got to be like visually moving, go. But, watching that just now after watching it earlier today, I was counting the duration of those shots. The average duration was probably between 2 and 3 seconds per shot, which is abnormal, I would say, for a lot of my commercial work.
Yeah.
To stick on one shot for longer than
Especially
even a
with no
second.
dialogue.
Yeah.
Especially with no dialogue to stay on a shot that long.
Absolutely. And then, I don't know. I would love to see commercials heading that direction. I think, but at the end of the day, you've really, it still comes back down to emotion. You've got to really nail that at the end. You've got to nail the emotion. Yeah, where are things going? I think it does feel like things right now are still heading like shorter. Like I tend to be very focused on 15-second ads right now, and telling a story effectively in 15 seconds, which is challenging. But
yeah, I want my 3 minutes.
yeah,
I want 3 minutes to tell a story.
yeah. And 3 minutes can work, quite well. I mean, you know this very well, but I don't know. I mean, I think, a lot of this year has been the 15s and 30s for me. So my head's been in that kind of game for a little while. With the Gabb spots in particular, we've got 5 spots running on broadcast right now nationwide. And so, and they've just learned that the 15-second spots are just way more effective.
I think, and that might also be on broadcast. I know Trevor Crump said something interesting. With Bestie, he said he doesn't think that attention spans are shorter, but consideration spans are shorter. And I think that's the purpose of the hook is give me a reason to stick around.
Yeah.
It's not like I need the content short, but I need to understand that this is worth my time. Because I will watch half an hour of a movie on TikTok, like, oh, this scene is interesting, and I'll go into the channel and watch like all these scenes and swipe from scene to scene in a feature, and maybe not watch the whole movie. And then I'm like, you know what, I really need to watch this whole thing. But I'm considering, like, their hook in that commercial is almost an anti-hook because of the slowness.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah.
wait, what's happening? The music already gives you clues. This is going to unfold slowly. It's note by note by note. What's happening here?
Yeah.
How would you change that, like that ad? Because you're definitely getting the emotion. You're nailing the emotion, but you know, we don't know anything about the company. It's hard to remember the brand. But also the second that you start talking about life insurance, scroll.
Yeah.
Right. So how do you blend that? It's so interesting to think about getting the emotion that you need as a director, or, you know, but also getting in all the consideration points that the consumer needs as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that commercial is pretty much perfect, and its performance has shown that, well, at least it has driven a lot of organic viewers. But I think you could make a case if you had a similar story where that main character also has his own family, and what are they going to do when you're gone? And if that was implanted, we've woven into the story a little bit to understand, like, you take care of other people, make sure you've set up something to take care of them when you're not there, like, so that can keep going. I feel like that's a life insurance message that I don't think I would get into this too much of the specifics, because I think life insurance is still so brand heavy, but, you know, you're thinking like, we're going to take care of the same values that you have maybe, but even then it still might be too on the nose for an ad. But they could have woven in some just very simple color and branding things throughout as he's walking through the city, to have billboards in the background that are not in your face, but are just repetitions of the brand, that you're seeing it there while he's doing good things. Could have been a very simple thing to help. You know, I know you've done it with the chatbook spots. You did a really great job of weaving in certain color schemes.
Yeah.
And with the art direction that was like, I remember yellows specifically being a part of that, and seeing and having this overall brand feel that was consistent with the website and everything else you do. And Gabb has a certain very strong brand present color scheme and things like that.
Yeah.
So in 15 seconds, how do you, if you're doing a lot more 15s and 30s, how are you anchoring your brand into, just instead of it's Gabb, buy it, it's safe for your kids?
Yeah.
You also have an emotional that you're playing with that's very important.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I mean, this year with Gabb in particular has just been a ton of fun, because we've got to play around with emotion. I mean, like I said, we have 5 spots running, but each one is emotionally a little bit different. We played with the comedy on one. We played with like a kind of a darker, serious, more sobering spot. We played with like we've got one that's a little bit more goofy, and then we've got one that's more about just like connection and the feels, and a mom and a son kind of concept that
Kind of, you don't have to be connected to the internet to be connected.
Yeah.
Sort of
And you know, part of that is also just to kind of see like what does resonate for people when they see these, emotionally speaking, and what's good for the brand. You know, because Gabb is still in this exploration mode of really finding that, like, because it's such an important message. I mean, part of why I'm there is because of the mission of Gabb, and you know, in short, just looking out for the mental health of our kids. Mental health is a very important subject in my life, and so it's been really interesting to kind of see what really resonates with parents, because I mean, we have one that's full of like the sobering statistics of what social media is doing to our children, you know, and it's scary, and it's but you know, shoving that kind of down people's throats isn't entirely super effective. You know, so we've found, like, let's just tell like a nice story. It can be a fun or funny story. Throw into a little bit of like, this is Gabb, we make these things. But really, like, the Gabb proposition it takes up maybe 3 to 5 seconds at the very end of it, and then the rest is all storytelling and nailing the emotion, and nailing setup and payoff. I mean, like, why is that spot, the Tai spot, getting shared so much? I mean, I think it's the payoff.
Yeah.
Right. It nails the emotion of the payoff, and setup and payoff is so important in all the storytelling we've done together too.
Yeah.
But you know, if I were to get like nitty gritty about the directing of why that's so effective, it's reaction shots. I mean,
all the third parties that are watching him, like, why are you doing that?
Yeah. His tight shot at the end when he sees the little schoolgirl, the tight shot of his reaction
of
to
the
that.
glasses vendor, or of the main character.
There.
Yeah, with the little girl who was like poor at the beginning and then is in school clothes, and then you get a nice tight shot of the guy's face where that's the first moment where it's like, oh, I'm making a difference. I mean, I think that's one of the primary reasons that spot gets organically shared so much. And yeah, so anyway.
Yeah, it's interesting. We looked at a bicycle commercial a few episodes ago,
Yeah.
and it actually would make a much better Gabb commercial.
Oh
than
yeah,
bicycle
I
commercial.
thought the same thing.
Yeah,
we should
I'll
send it
I'll
to you.
Yeah, but
It would be a perfect Gabb
it
commercial.
was one of the commercials where we loved it, but nobody remembered the name of the product or what it does.
Okay.
But you're left with like, oh, I don't want my kids to have a phone. And Gabb is, the great thing is, it's a great phone that your kids will put down.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's a phone that your kids will put down, and they use it to connect, not to be connected.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
the first questions we like to ask. First of all, tell us a little bit about your career, how you got into this, and what your journey's been like.
Yeah. Well, I've had a strange career, I suppose. I finished school with a short film called Mr. Bell Pond, and that did pretty well right out of school. I got two student Emmys for it, Best Comedy, Best Director, and ended up getting nominated for the student Oscar for it, and then took it to festivals right out of school. And that was like a fantastic experience because I got to just travel around and experience the film festival life, and kind of fell in love with that. I love going to festivals and meeting up with other filmmakers and cinephiles around the country and around the world. And that really kind of kicked off my whole career. I started my career mostly focused on long form storytelling, and ended up, like I said, shooting some feature documentaries in Cambodia. And then because of that short film, Mr. Bell Pond, I also got hired by local company Aerostorm. You might know some of those guys, Jason Fowler and Kynan Griffin.
Yeah, a lot of great guys over there.
And they hired me to direct a Mythica movie, fantasy film, and that was pretty close to right after school. I almost consider that experience my grad school, because it was just like jumping into feature filmmaking and going for it, knowing very little about how to do it. You know, I'd made short films in school and did well with that first thesis film. But that film was a really fantastic experience on how to make a movie, and very different than documentary filmmaking too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you've made a lot of great films, and then you also moved into the world of performance marketing. And, you know, we interview business owners and entrepreneurs and marketers and creatives, and we're kind of talking a lot around the intersection of creative and performance. You've made some very important commercials that have helped some companies grow a lot.
Yeah.
What would you say are maybe one or two of the commercials? And
yeah.
I'm not looking for anything like just with us, because I know you've made some for some really great people.
Yeah.
Like what are some of the commercials you've made that you've seen have big success?
Well, a couple. So after I made some of that longer form content, the features, I started making content for fun just on YouTube, and ended up sort of just treating YouTube as a playground for directing. You know, because as a director, it's really hard to get practice directing, but it's sort of the most important thing.
Yeah.
And YouTube and still is a great way for somebody to just go out and make something. So I started doing that, and then that's what ultimately led to the commercial work, is just kind of practicing doing the short form filmmaking. And both Creatably and also local company Harmon Brothers kind of saw
great work. Yeah.
some of that work, and I got hired to do kind of right out of the gate chapbooks. Made that with Harmon Brothers. And
I didn't realize you had directed that that.
Yeah, the one
chapbook piece.
with Lisa where she pops up out of the tub at the beginning.
Yeah.
That really kind of kicked off my commercial career in a big way. That led to that, and the YouTube work led to a commercial manager out of LA.
Yeah.
That connected me with sales reps, and so then my career kind of turned into pitching on commercials, and I still do a whole lot of that.
I think you first came on my radar after the purple commercial that you did.
Okay.
I wasn't aware that you'd done the Chatbooks one as well, but both led to big results for those companies.
Yeah.
As a filmmaker, it's funny, one thing that Jay and I used to talk about a lot is frustrated filmmakers don't make good commercials, but filmmakers that understand the medium and how it's different and embrace it make incredible commercials.
Yeah.
Like as a director, what kind of considerations and how do you approach things differently when you're looking at a feature versus a performance commercial? Because a lot of commercials look beautiful, but you have a way of also making ones that drive consumer behaviors.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think like the role of the director to me is to evoke emotion. And so that's maybe the connection between the two is evoking some kind of emotion. I think when it comes to commercial work, though, it's doing that in a very succinct and quick and just, I guess that's the best way to put it. Just a succinct way of practicing that short form storytelling. It's doing the same thing. You're evoking an emotion, which for me, for the most part, has been comedy, an action comedy, and that's the kind of the emotion that we're trying to pull out of the audience. But with commercial storytelling, it's learning how to do that quickly and effectively in 30 to 60 to 3 minutes long, depending on the kind of commercial we're making. But
well, people often ask us why we do funny commercials, and you've obviously done a lot of funny stuff as well. And I know that's not the only emotion. And I feel like consumer behavior is most driven by emotion, and then they look for reasons to support that emotion.
Right, yeah.
And I think that humor is the most accessible emotion to get to. You really have to earn the other emotions, and they don't always lead to consumer behavior. Any secrets that you've learned about that, or have you had experience or luck with other emotions in commercials driving results?
Yeah. Well, I think a big reason I've landed in comedy in a big way, I heard a quote early on the DGA podcast, the Directors Guild podcast from the Russo brothers, that has stuck with me for a long time. They just talk about how comedy, if you can make it, they talk about the fact that like if you can make an audience laugh, it actually opens up an audience to all the other emotions.
Yeah.
So, which I've seen to be true, like if you can make a person laugh or make an audience laugh, then they're more open to cry. They're more open to getting the feels, And
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I wonder if it's a matter of just if you can connect to laughter. I don't know. That's an interesting question. Why psychologically does comedy open up all those other emotions?
I think it's the most disarming emotion that sets you at ease. It says, hey, we're on the same page.
Yeah.
Because we can laugh at the same thing, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, you never, dating analogy, but you would never use a pickup line that's sad. You're just like, do you care about starving children in China? I do too. Like, that's a common thing, but they're going to be like, why are you going there? Like it disarms you and makes you like, okay, we can sit and chat. We can have a conversation.
Yeah.
But Shakespeare seemed to have understood this. Like Hamlet has Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, and Macbeth has Alas, Poor Yorick, they're not as funny to us now because the language is so obtuse. But for that audience, I think those were comedic pieces that in these tragedies, he knew that if I want to get them to feel this deep emotion, I've got to let them breathe. Somewhere.
Yeah. Well, and I've seen that to be true so many times. I mean, especially with the commercials even that we have made. We talk a lot about the importance of the all-powerful hook in a commercial with hooking the audience, and a lot of that, with the stuff that we've made together, and a lot of the content I've made in my career is ties to comedy. And because if you can get an audience to laugh like right out of the gate, then they'll listen, and they'll listen to your message, and it can be a very effective tool.
Yeah, a lot of people ask, well, can you do a serious ad for us? And we have done serious ads, and you've never seen them. And it's not, and the clients love them.
Yeah.
And it's not because they weren't good commercials. We've won awards with our serious commercials, and
Yeah.
you've never seen them.
Yeah.
And I've had a big client come to us and like, we want to make a commercial that looks like this. They showed us the commercial. I'm like, that ad has 700 views. You know, it's online, and it's like, that's as far as they go. They just don't seem to travel. We feel like people share different things. And there was a study that a group in Salt Lake did, Family Share, and they segmented content by emotions and got very specific to internet emotions like FOMO, like charitable giving. And they found like charitable giving has a really high share rate, but people don't actually watch it all the way through. It's like, this feels good, but I want to let everybody know that I'm a good guy, so I'm going to share this.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to look, and it doesn't usually open their wallets either. FOMO is one of the internet emotions that gets a high watch through and a high buying rate. Nostalgia, you know, like
Yeah,
look at the
nostalgia's a good one
90s,
too,
look
yeah.
at the, And I think humor is just something that everybody believes they have a decent sense of humor.
Yeah.
And I don't think a funny commercial has to be hilarious to work. I think it has to be enjoyable. It has to be fun.
That's true. Yeah.
Because I think about one of the pieces you did for Gabb Wireless, where you did a great Stranger Things homage,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it was serious, but it was fun because if you like that world, it was fun to be in that world,
Yeah.
and it was fun to watch.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was treated seriously, but it was fun. You know, and so I think fun is probably more even important to funny to me, and it's interesting as we look at directors' reels, like, oh no, they're certainly competent, but some directors just can't do fun, or they can't do, and then they can't do funny. And more often you can see a comedic actor or director do serious than the other way around. It's much easier to see Steve Martin, Adam Sandler, the comedic actors that can like then pivot and direct serious and act serious and pull off these really heavy roles, when like Adam Sandler couldn't be more ridiculous of an actor. Like in his comedies, he seems like he's not even trying to play the characters. It's like Adam Sandler is barely Happy Gilmore, you know?
Yeah.
But then when he's like in Punch Drunk Love, or, you know, he
Yeah.
just really inhabits those characters.
How do you shift gears? Because you just got back from Cambodia.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's not a very humorous sort of scene, probably, right? So how do you shift gears from doing, those long form, more serious, still evoking emotion, but just totally different, to the humorous side?
Well, I think maybe the connection is fun. I think like, regardless of what kind of thing I'm making, I choose to have fun. I think it's really important to have fun on set. I love working with actors and with the crew members, and to have fun doing it, even if you are making something serious. I mean, years and years ago, that Cambodian documentary I shot on a garbage dump, that was not super fun. And we even had students come to help us, and we spent 6 months on a garbage dump shooting the story of a family, and it was
And I've
difficult,
been there, and
it's rough.
It's smelly and it's sad, and it's not a smell that you can easily. I mean, it is a hard place to be. I've been there, and
we found ways to. Maybe you're familiar with this story already. I accidentally kind of became a rock star in Cambodia throughout the.
No, I don't think I've heard the story. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I could tell you the story, but it's that became sort of important while we're out on the garbage dump, shooting the story and following these people around. We would stop and then just start to sing songs with the Cambodian folks up there, and we'd have groups of Cambodians stop their work, stop picking through the garbage to find recyclables, and just start clapping and singing songs with us. So even in this really difficult place, we're still finding ways to have fun, and we found that too with the people living there. I mean, with the kids are living in a terrible environment, especially by our standards, and yet you see these kids running around making little toys out of garbage and still having fun, and still finding ways to be a kid. And so, I don't know, that's kind of stuck with me throughout my whole career, but yeah.
It seems like making things fun is important, not as a goal, but as in a part of whatever process you're doing.
Yeah.
We have a saying, like, as we read scripts, like if nobody laughs in the script and nobody laughs on set, and if nobody laughs in the editing room, the audience is going to laugh when you show it to them.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so it's got to feel as fun to make as it is to see. I mean, of course everybody can't be like drunk while you're making the commercial. You need people very serious about their tasks. How do you cultivate that sense of fun on set? Because you have great sets where you've got high-end pros doing their jobs, but people love to be on an ATOD set. I love to visit an ATOD set.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Well, for me, it's about. I mean, I also love the pressure and I love the pace of being on a film set, and I love the focus that is required to get a job done well, effectively, on budget, on time.
Yeah.
But to me, all that comes in preparation. Like my big part of my process is just prep and over prep and over communicate as much as I possibly can before you're on set, so that you are freed up to just have fun. As long as you arrive to set and everybody, your DP and your talent are on the same page with the vision and what you're trying to accomplish, then I think that opens you up to be able to have more fun, to play a little bit, and find the moments of comedy if that's what we're going after on set. But that's become really important to me, is just the preparation side of it.
I've noticed watching your process as you spend time with your actors. Yours is different than mine because I watch you work on a scene until you get the emotion right, and then you'll work on it till you get the pacing right. And okay, this is it. Now we need to move the speed up a little bit. And I think that is one thing that a lot of people aren't prepared for: the speed of an internet commercial.
Yeah,
they move at a different clip. Have you found that to be true?
Oh, very much. Yeah. And you definitely don't want to be the type of director that's just like constantly telling an actor faster.
Yeah.
Faster.
George Lucas, which he's known for that.
Yeah. But there's ways to still get the faster performance, but have motivation behind it, and it's been fun to kind of figure out ways to do that with an actor for me over the years, and come up, like actors like motivations. They like having a reason to go faster instead of just like, okay, now a faster take for me, please.
Yeah, one more, just a little bit. Yeah. I have found in my career that when I started, I didn't want to be pinned down by my storyboards and all these books and papers. I wanted to be free to explore. But as I've done more and I figured out, well, this needs to happen. And if I can pin down the things that have to happen, it gives me a lot more freedom of what can happen.
Yeah.
And if I can explain, like with my storyboard, this is what I need to have happen in this scene so that the audience gets this out of it, then people are open to like, what if we lit it this way? What if we did a wider shot? What if we did a push? And they can then contribute more once they know what's important to me as a director.
Yeah.
They can offer their art and their craft.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think my favorite part of filmmaking is probably the collaboration. It's coming together with tons of talented and creative minds and coming up with something together. It's sort of the magic of it. I mean, you can have an idea and a vision in your head and communicate the heck out of it. But I think the magic happens when you involve everybody in on that process too, and little things pop up while you're on set. You have to be open to explore a little bit, I mean, of course, with these commercials, you're constantly going as quick as you possibly can. So there's that side of it too, but.
Yeah, we certainly try to be efficient. Let me ask you about the challenges specifically of working on a Creatably set.
Yeah.
Because you've directed commercials for a lot of people.
Yeah.
We kind of have our 10 commandments. There are certain things. What are the things that you find maybe guidelines? I could say frustrating even. As a director, sometimes you want to do some things. What are some of the rules that you find on our sets that are different, that you're like, I know that Creatably is not going to want me to do this, or this, and how do you deal with that as a filmmaker? Because we do offer constraints. Like there's a lot of things we're like, okay, here's the thing. I know you want to do this, but we don't do this.
Yeah, Damien, step out of the room and we'll get the real answer.
Yeah. No, I love.
I mean, an example that
I think because I think that people want to hear this. That it's like we're not making short films. It's a different format, and there's things as a filmmaker I love to see, but on a commercial I don't do. because we've
yeah.
tested them, and
Yeah, I mean, that like kind of maybe springs an example that comes up to mind, and of something that maybe we've learned almost together over the years. But that is the concept of dolly shots, even. Something as simple as that. Like when you're making a feature film, a beautiful push in on your lead actor for a very particular moment, it can be a powerful thing. But in a commercial where you got to be moving, that dolly shot's probably not going to work. And we've learned that like you got to be able to cut.
yeah.
Can you do dolly shots still? Yeah, but you've got to think of a way to do them effectively, quickly, and a little differently.
Well, and also that, you might see the director's cut and the theatrical cut for a feature, but one of our ads might get cut in 60 different ways. And if this whole scene is in one long move, I can't jump from this line to that line, and that's a constraint, but I love it. But I think there's been several times when we've still used them very effectively. I think about the homie shot where we did the Hitchcock hallway.
Yeah.
Which we still get. That's one of, like, I would say it's one of the top 10 shots that people will bring up. Like, I love the Hitchcock hallway joke, which when the commercial came out, like, it was like kind of too inside baseball for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But people will bring it up,
Yeah.
So there are
and
times we use it, but that's usually the exception. We don't dolly very often.
Well, and that commercial is like another example of where we're like, oh, it'd be kind of cool to do this dolly shot on the real estate agent. That's like, what? Are you ready to sign the papers? But we're like, we can't do like that push in on her. I think it'll take too much time in the edit. Instead, let's put the actor on the dolly and have her floating toward the audience.
And it created like a spookiness.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting how sometimes those constraints, people think that constraints inhibit creativity, but I think they make your brain like, oh, there's a hurdle here. Do I jump over it, climb under it, go around it? And you come up with these really unique solutions.
Yeah. So I don't know. Back to maybe the constraints of a creatively set. That's maybe perhaps one of them, but I think it's really helped me kind of think of how to be just more economic with the storytelling, and I honestly think that's also affected how I think about long form storytelling too, because I think if you can bring that economic storytelling even into a long form story, that long form story is more effective too. So
Well, because we've got to earn like every second, like
exactly.
We're losing people constantly, and so we're trying to figure out how do I keep them, and it's amazing in a long push.
Yeah, but back to Creatably though, I think one thing I've very much appreciated about Creatably is kind of the creative freedom. Like I've never been told by anybody at Creatably like, this is what we have to do for this.
Yeah.
I still have my shot list. I still have my ideas, and there's still a lot of collaboration with everybody. And that kind of freedom has been really, really, really nice. I mean, I've shot like broadcast commercials in different parts of the nation, for example, where I'm working with an agency that kind of goes, this is exactly what we want. And
like, so why did you hire me then?
Yeah, you can get to a point where you're like, this is the exact shot you want. Like, why exactly am I here? I mean, I'm here to direct the actors too, and you can play with the pacing, kind of like we were talking about before, and you can find the pace with the actors. But it's like, when you start to feel too constrained as a director, it's just kind of like, why am I here?
Yeah. What do you feel like you lose, when you don't have that freedom? Do you feel like the performance is, the end result is worse, or do you feel like, I guess what do you lose? Because it's really interesting to kind of take like a script and then you put your spin on it when you're bringing it to life, And so, I can imagine if they have their idea, they have their script, and then they're really prescribing exactly how they want it shot. I'm just curious as a director what you feel like, how that impacts the finished product.
You lose, honestly, you lose a little bit of enthusiasm, I suppose. Some of that fun that I was talking about kind of gets pulled away. You don't feel quite as free to just to play on set a little bit. You feel more like, okay, Video Village is watching for exactly what they want.
Order taker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Well, we feel like you lose the magic when you become a button pusher. If I'm sitting over my editor, I no longer have an editor. I have a technician, right? And when we like, oh, this is a great spot for Todd, we're expecting you to add something.
Yeah.
And it's usually because this spot requires interesting character, physicality, unique space, and I need it to negotiate these things. And at each step, you hope that your writers add something, your editors add something, and you're looking for a director that has a certain set of skills, like Liam Neeson, that
Yeah.
you can take care of those.
A certain set of skills.
Yes, and it's to make a commercial funny. But within our rules, I remember one of the things that we talked about when we did Clean Cult. We did a spot where it was like you were in a cult, and it was a dangerous cult, and it started out with dark and wolf masks.
Yeah.
And we were like, hey, dark. That's one of our other rules. Like dark doesn't work.
Yeah.
But we tried it both ways. Like, well, let's still try it. We still keep testing it.
Yeah.
But also we came up with this unique solution to make it look more like Midsummer, which is this horror show that's bright and airy.
Yeah.
And when we tested it, we still lost 15% of our audience in the dark scenes.
Really?
So we removed all the dark scenes, but we still were able to try it. I think that's what I like about the relationship is that we have kind of our 10 commandments of Creatably commercials, but we're still willing to try anything. But we just need to make sure we have an option as well, because we're going to test it and see what works. And,
Well,
and try things out.
I think one thing I've appreciated about it's almost hard to call them constraints, because I think back to what you were talking about earlier, it's like there's the 10 commandments at Creatably, but I think like when I'm reading a script and I have those in mind, you still feel free to bring creative ideas to the table. Like, I know what these are. I know we need to go bright and white, but here, let's like twist it this way a little bit, or let's like, you're still free to be creative. And I think that's important.
I mean, not to be too academic, but I think it was David Hume, the philosopher, who said like genius gives the rule to art, which is like, you can't give too many rules to art. And it's sometimes how you break that rule that makes it interesting.
Yeah.
But having the rule gives you something to confront, and you have to be much more mindful about, well, why do we dolly here? Is it just because it's going to add production value, or does it convey emotion that I really need right now? Or is it because I want to make my film and I've always wanted to do this shot, or because right now I need this thing to happen, this joke to hit, or this demonstration to really make sense to the viewer in a certain kind of way. So, looking back on the last 10 or 15 years, tell me about some of your favorite pieces that you've done.
Oh man. Well, a lot of them are Creatably spots. I mean, some of that Manly Bands, early Manly Bands.
Yeah, we were just talking to Jonathan, and that grew them really, really quickly. But man, we built a great world. So we built. Well, tell them about the set, because this was your idea, because we had like this. There's a jewelry store, but it wasn't a jewelry store. Tell them about the set. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we decided we wanted to start the spot with like a bright and kind of beautiful set piece, but we also knew that we wanted to showcase like the Manly Band style and like have a set that was kind of more textured and it evoked the man vibes, but so what we did is then we ended up starting out in this bright, beautiful jewelry store, and then we built a wall to open up to the kind of like darker, more dramatic set.
Man cave, yeah.
The man cave.
So it was like a jewelry store with pink walls and gold, and the whole jewelry store split and moved aside.
Yeah.
And the lighting changed too, and it was all, so that broke our rules. Like it was one big camera move, split the set in half, and then you went into this man cave with like a bear on the wall.
Right.
It was like dark and moody, but very, very masculine. Very masculine. I'm using my masculine voice. It was that masculine. There's hair in my voice. That's how masculine it was. Yeah. That was a lot of fun. That was a fun week because we didn't do just one video for them. I think we did something like 11. And they are still running. That was 5 years ago now, I think.
Yeah.
And they're still running the documentary piece, the story of the Brain
great.
Round
Yeah.
as well.
Oh,
and then the Lord of the Rings piece led to an actual partnership with, I think, Warner Brothers, and they did an actual Warner
actually
Brothers
selling
ring.
the One Ring.
Yeah.
They have a whole line of
No way.
Tolkien themed rings now because of that.
Oh,
Yeah.
no way. And that was a ton of fun too. I mean, that was, we kind of tried to match that shot for shot, if you remember. And oh man, that was so much fun to be able to kind of bring the Creatably look to it, but also match like the Lord of the Rings shots, like shot for shot.
I also remember the conversation. Like we didn't quite have molten gold budget, so it
Right.
it looks like they're
Gold
melting
paint.
gold. It was gold paint coming out of so it looks like molten gold. That was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for joining us. I think that's all we have time for today on the Totally Radvertising Podcast. And I look forward to years more of working with you, and
likewise.
And nothing but great success for Gabb. Love what Gabb is doing. And where can people find you? Where's the best place if they want to follow your work, your YouTube channel, or?
I haven't posted to YouTube in many years. I mean, that was the thing. I that launched my commercial career, and then I kind of stopped.
Okay.
Well, I had content that blew up, but I just didn't keep it up. But probably Instagram, or I've got a website, atodd.com. It's very simple.
Awesome.
That would probably be the best place.
Awesome.
atodd.com.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you guys next time on the Totally Radvertising Podcast.
It's totally rad. It's totally rad.
Join us every week right here on Spotify, YouTube, Apple, or wherever you listen to stuff for your pods.